Hello there! Welcome to my second video for using PowerPoint to create resources for teachers pay teachers, and for professional development that you might be presenting for teachers and administrators. My name is Lee Colazzo. I am also known as MrsReaderPants, and I have had a Teachers Pay Teachers store since 2014 under MrsReaderPants Library Lessons, as I am also a school librarian. So today's video, this is part of a larger series that we're doing about PowerPoint and creating PowerPoint for students and teachers. This is not really how to start PowerPoint. This is not a beginner's course in PowerPoint, although you will probably pick up some tips, hopefully, that you didn't know before. But what this is best practices for creating PowerPoints. Because when I go on Teachers Pay Teachers and I look at other sellers' resources, there's a lot of room for improvement in simple things that are very easy to fix, but they just didn't know. And I'm not bashing those sellers. I actually was one of those sellers too. As recently as like 2020, I was creating PowerPoints that had I had one PowerPoint that had 16 fonts. 16. I would never do that now. That's just not going to happen now. I've learned, but nobody told me. It's like there's all these things and it seems like everybody else knows, but I didn't know them. And so I figure if I don't know them, then other people don't know them as well. So if you do know these things, then great, you can get started. But these are just some simple tips of things that you can use to make your PowerPoints for your students or for your professional development or for your Teachers Pay Teachers store. Make them pop, make them interesting, make them bright and colorful and clear. So we're going to get started. Today we're talking about specifically fonts and what fonts to use, what fonts not to use. We're talking about headers, which will be, they usually are at the top of your presentation slides. And you can also put them at the bottom though. I have done that as well. And then we're talking about text. Now, when I say text in this presentation, I mean the main body text of the PowerPoint. This is what you want your students to learn. So this is, for me, it's often in bullet points. It can be very short sentences, but this is the main crux of what you want your students to learn. So let's get started. Okay, we're going to start with our font size for headers. So we're talking about fonts today. This is for creating PowerPoint videos for students, for teacher professional development, and also for Teachers Pay Teachers. And all three of those are slightly different. So we're going to start with talking about header fonts. So I've got 4 fonts here. And as you're looking at these, decide which one you think is the easiest to read. I'm kind of between the top 2 myself. The top 2 are both KG Blank Space Solid font, which is by Kimberly Guesswain. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but this is a TPT seller who creates lots and lots of beautiful fonts, and they are able to be you can download them for free if you're using them in your classroom. Now, if you're selling them commercially, you'll have to use her commercial license for the fonts, but those are very reasonably priced, and we'll have a look at that in just a few minutes. But the KG Blank Space font, which is the top 2 fonts here, are the ones that I use in all of my presentations that I sell on Teachers Pay Teachers. The third one down is a serif font, or sorry, not a serif, a script font or a cursive font. You want to avoid those in all of your presentations, no matter who you are presenting to, like the plague. No script fonts. We don't want cursive. It's just too difficult to read. The bottom font is the KG Blank Space again, but it is yellow and it's on a white background, so you can see that that's difficult to read. I've got the same 4 fonts on a black background. And again, we have high contrast here in the colors between the black background and the white and the yellow, but you don't want to use a dark background in a lot of your slides. You still want most of your slides to be a white, preferably, or very light colored background. I really like using borders to put some color in, but your text should be on a white background for the most part. So even the yellow one down here, you can see it almost looks like it glows a little bit. So you want to, it's fine to use it every now and then, but you really want to try and keep that to a minimum as much as possible. Again, the cursive font here, the third one down, very difficult to see. I did the same on red. And this is just not as much contrast. It's not terrible. It's okay for a slide or two, but you really want to try to avoid it and use the white background as much as possible with a black or I like black font, but a dark blue font. For headers, I do change the font colors because they're short, but for text, you always want to use black font. So for header fonts, this will be the top part of your slide. And you want to, I've got some do's and don'ts here. So firstly, you want to use a clear, bold font. This font should be easier to see. It should stand out among your text font, which will be below or above. You can do the header font at the bottom even. You do want to pick just one header font that you really like for that one product or that one presentation. It's just more consistent. I really like using the KG blank space as part of my brand. So if you are on Teachers Pay Teachers and you're looking to sell, try to find fonts that have one font that you like for headers and use that consistently for your brand. Do use contrasting colors. I just talked about that. Your background should be light, your font should be dark, or vice versa. You should not have a red background with a green font. That is just ugly and it is not going to be able to be seen very clearly. If you are creating for Teachers Pay Teachers, be sure, this is such a big one. I learned this one very early on. Be sure you link any non-standard fonts that you might use. So non-standard font would be a font that is not on most, it's not preloaded on most computers. So it would be a font that someone would have to download themselves and add to their computer. So for my header fonts, KG blank space solid, when I am doing every presentation I have, has a slide at the beginning about this is the KG blank space font. Here's the link to it. It's free for personal use and classroom use, and teachers can choose to download that and add it. The problem with using that, I mean, I do it and a lot of people do, but the problem is that a lot of times teachers don't know how to download fonts or they don't have time, they don't want to fool with it. So I also have instructions on there if you don't want to download this font or cannot, because sometimes on school computers they can't download new fonts. Here's the instructions to change all of those header fonts in PowerPoint, which you are able to do. Also, I mentioned don't use cursive or script fonts, and do not write really long headers. Try to keep them, I actually prefer to keep them to one line, make them as short as I can to keep them to one line. You could go on to a second line if you need to. I've done that as well, but I definitely would not do a header font over 3 lines. You need to make that smaller or really make it shorter is probably a better idea. So this is my favorite. Well, it's not my favorite. My favorite is KG blank space, which I just talked about. But this Arial bold uppercase is a great font if you're looking for a basic font that is on all, virtually all computers. So it's just Arial bold. There's an Arial bold font, but I like using Arial font in uppercase and then bolding it myself. It's not exactly the same as Arial black, which I have used as well, but I really like this Arial bold in uppercase letters. Sentence case is when you have, it's using like uppercase letters for the start of the sentence, that sort of thing, and lowercase letters for everything else. So this one is sentence case, and I like that one as well for headers. But this is a nice, simple font. It's available widely. I'm going to talk in a little bit about the 4 fonts that are recommended for dyslexia. Arial is one of them, which is exactly why I use it. That is intentional. My son has dyslexia, and it's something that teachers really need to be very trained in, and we're just not. All my stuff I know about it is from my own reading and my own studying about it. So this is also what's great about Arial is if you're going to convert your PowerPoints into Google Slides or you're using Google Slides, Arial is available in Google Slides, and you can also bold it and all of that. So it's a great choice. I just mentioned KG blank space solid. This one is my go-to. You'll also see this one in my branding on my blog. I just really like the look of this one. I've seen a lot of other Teachers Pay Teachers sellers use it, so it's clearly not just me. But this is a nice, clear, bold font. It is free for personal use when you download it on Teachers Pay Teachers. I'm actually going to show you that real quick. So let me pull that up. If you go here to Teachers Pay Teachers, this is the link, and I'll put this in the description. You can just, I have to log in, I'm not logged in, but you can log in and download this free. If you do want to use it commercially on Teachers Pay Teachers, you can go and click here to single font, and I'll put this link in the description as well. It's only $5 right now. That's probably how much it is all the time. I don't think I've seen her raise that price, although who knows when you're watching this video, it's possible. But right now it's $5 as of today. So back to this. The disadvantage to using KG blank space is that it is not available in Google Slides. This is a proprietary font that Kimberly Guesswain created. So it's not in Google Slides, it's not open source, and you're not able to add it. I've looked and looked, I don't see any way to add new fonts to Google Slides. So that's a big disadvantage. I can't use it in Google Slides either. So when I do my Google Slides, all of my KG blank space, I default to Arial, uppercase, and the solid, the bold. This is also a disadvantage that this is not going to be generally on teacher computers, most likely. So they will have to download it, and they will have to know how to do that and install fonts. Many teachers do not know how to do that. So you can include instructions for that, or you can just, I don't even bother. If they know how to do it, they know how to do it. But I do include instructions on how to change all the fonts in a presentation, which I'm going to show you. So let's say that the computer opens this up and I don't have KG blank space as a teacher. So if the computer opens this up and I've used KG blank space, I make all of my presentations editable. If I locked this down, you would be able to see the KG blank space, but you wouldn't be able to change it. I make mine editable. So if somebody opens this and they don't have this on their computer, this font, it's going to open in whatever font their computer defaults to, and it can look really weird. It can be huge. It can be like just weird. So they will need to change that. So in order to do that, they're going to go to replace and then fonts. This is on the home tab. And they want to pick which font they want to replace. So I've got a lot of different fonts in this presentation. This is not typical of me anymore. I do recommend not having more than 2 fonts in any given presentation, one for headers and one for text. But in this one, I used a lot of fonts as examples. But let's say that I want to change all of my blank space solid, because they'll still see it, to Arial. I'm not going to do that because I'm still doing this presentation, but I can click replace and it will make everything Arial. I'll have to go back and bold my headings, but it will do it. So I'm not going to do that though. Another font that I really like, this one's great for like kindergarten teachers and first grade. It just looks like a kindergarten font to me. This is very similar to the blank space, except you can see the blank space font has sort of sharper edges. I do mostly upper elementary and secondary resources, so I really like that. But if you want something with softer edges, Red Hands is another great one. This is also available from Kimberly Guesswain on TPT, and it is free for personal and classroom use, but you do need to pay for a commercial license if you are using it for your TPT store, including free products. Again, the same disadvantages as with KG blank space. This is not available in Google Slides, and it is not going to be on teachers' computers. Most likely, they will have to download it and know how to do that. So we're going to go to the text fonts now, and I've got 4 fonts here, and just kind of look at it and see which ones you think are easiest to read. The top font is Arial. I told you that's my favorite. The second font is Century Gothic. Century Gothic is also going to be on most computers. And I like this one. I used to use this one for everything, but I am in the process of converting my Century Gothic to Arial in my products that exist already. The reason I liked this is because the A's, if you look at the A in read, that's how students form their A's in school. So that's why I chose that one. It's also considered a secondary font for dyslexia, which I'll share with you in a minute. It's not as good as like the main 4, but it's still one that's definitely workable with dyslexia. I stopped using this because I just felt that Arial was a better alternative. I don't like the question mark on Century Gothic. It's just, it looks very strange. Children don't make their question marks that way. And then I had read that Arial was a better font for dyslexia than Century Gothic. So that's the only reason I switched, but was because of that question mark. And then the Arial I thought was better. The third one is a cursive font, and the fourth one is a lighter font, sort of a orangey yellow on white, which you can see is not very easy to read. I think that bottom one is Calibri, I want to say, and I'm not sure the other one. So again, this is what they look like on a black page. I just really try to avoid doing the text font on anything but white background, black text on white background. Header fonts, I'm more flexible with those. And here it is on red. And if you look at that orangey yellow one, you can barely see it. So with text fonts, we're getting a storm. With text fonts, your do's and don'ts, you always want to try to use universal fonts that don't need to be downloaded as much as possible. That's a good idea with your headers too. It's just not what I do, but do what I say, not what I do, right? But it's you want to keep that simple because a lot of teachers are not going to have specialty fonts on their computers. Do use fonts that are proven to work with dyslexia. We'll talk about that in just a second. Do use black text on white. And make sure you're using your sentence case. There's a place in PowerPoint to change your sentence case. So let's say I want to change this one here. If I highlight it and I go up here to this AA, I have sentence case. I can make it all lowercase. I can make it all uppercase. I can capitalize all the words in the sentence, or I can toggle the case. So this is currently lowercase, so I can make it all opposite, which makes that particular thing uppercase. So I like sentence case for regular text and uppercase for header text. Although uppercase isn't, you can use, like on header text, where is it, header text? I think that this one actually looks quite good as well. Maybe even a little easier to read, to be honest. Okay, but you can decide how to do that. You also want to use bullet points and short, simple text. You do not want long lines of text on anything that you are presenting to children or to teachers. We don't like PowerPoint slides being read to us. I hear that complaint all the time. I've gone to bad PD, just like the rest of you, and we do not want slides to be read to us. It's just not, it just, don't do it. Don't do it. Also, don't use the cursive or script fonts, and avoid unnecessary italics. I'm going to share a study with you in just a minute about dyslexia, and it said that italicized words are difficult for dyslexic students to read. Sometimes it's necessary. You need to italicize the title of a book, and you need to do that correctly. I don't really know that. I couldn't find anything that underlining was a problem, so you could do that, I guess, if you really wanted to avoid italics. I use italics if I'm talking about book titles, but try to avoid it. You don't want to do whole lines of text in italics for sure. So these are the 4 fonts: Arial, Helvetica, Verdana, and Courier. I'm going to talk about Courier in a second. Those are the 4 that are recommended by these 2 sites on the bottom. That they did studies on dyslexic kids and found that these 4 fonts helped them read at the best rate and have the best comprehension. I put Courier and then New in parentheses because I don't have a font on my computer called Courier, but I do have Courier New, so that's that one. I tried to see if that mattered because Courier was the one recommended in these 2 studies, but it didn't say anything about whether Courier New or Courier, so I don't know. The other 2 that were recommended that are not on my computer, which means they're probably not on other people's computers either, it's probably not a standard font that's installed currently, is Dyslexia and Open Dyslexic. I am not dyslexic, but I actually read all of my Kindle books in Open Dyslexic font. I feel like it makes me read faster. So if you've never tried that and you like to read, you might give that a try. I like that I can change my fonts in Kindle, but I've been hooked on Open Dyslexic for many, many years. And I've linked the 2 things down there. You can't click on them on YouTube, of course, but I can put them in the description. So your font sizes, your header fonts should be large, but they should be consistent in size generally. So if you go back and you look here, some of mine are a little bit larger. Let's see, where's the header? And some of them are a little smaller. But like this last one, font size, I could make that bigger because it looks very tiny. It's very short. But generally, they should be consistent in size. You can move the headers around. I have lots of slides that I do where the header is at the bottom, or it's in the middle, and I have an image on the going across the top like a panoramic. So you can definitely play around with where the header is. But generally, I have it at the top. It doesn't have to be that way. Try to avoid one small word on a line after a comma. Okay, so I left this like this on purpose. So right here, we have a line, we have a comma, and we have one small word. I just don't like the look of that. It's fine. Maybe a lot of people don't even notice, but I think it's better. Whoops. Let me do this. I think it's better if you just squish that in a little bit, and you see how much difference that makes in the way that that looks. It just looks a little nicer. Try to avoid using one small word on a line after a comma. So yeah, okay, I did that one. Try to avoid using one word on its own line. And I did this one on purpose as well. So for this one, yeah, this might be a good place to, instead of, because if I move this back out, now but's back there and line is still there. So what I could do though is leave but that way and just cut this out. And then paste it. And what is this font? 24. So we're going to go up to 24. And then maybe we do here. And now we have this I. So I just slide that in. There we go. And then we can use this space for a picture here and maybe a small picture here, or we can just squeeze this in a little bit more, whatever. Okay. And for text presentations, or for text in the presentations, I really like the 24, 28, or 32-point Arial font. So up here, and you can type over if you want to do like 26, that's okay. Make sure your text is highlighted. I can do 26 if I want to, and it'll change it just slightly. I'll go back in. Okay. And then the last one is line spacing, and I wanted to show you an example here. I really like using space between the lines and not using a lot of lines on the slide itself. So what I do is I go up here. This is single space lines. So I just go up here. I really personally like 1.5. You can do double spacing if you'd prefer, but that helps to spread it out a little bit. It's just a lot easier to read for students. Okay, that's a wrap for our second video in this series about PowerPoint's best practices and tips for teachers and for Teachers Pay Teacher sellers. My name is Lee Colazzo. I am Mrs. Readerpants, and you can find me at readerpants.net or in my Teachers Pay Teacher store at Mrs. Readerpants Library Lessons. I will have another video coming to you soon for PowerPoint tips and tricks. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you have any comments about things that you've done that have helped you with PowerPoint or best practices, tips, anything like that, please feel free to comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.